नमामि विघ्नेश्वर पादपङ्कजम्। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला। भज मुरली मनोहर नंदलाला, भज मुरली मनोहर नंदलाला, कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला। भज मुरली मनोहर नंदलाला, भज मुरली मनोहर नंदलाला, कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला। कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला। भज मुरली मनोहर भज मुरली मनोहर नंद लाला कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।
So microphones need batteries. We need meditation. Let's close our eyes and charge our batteries for a few minutes. Find a position that's comfortable for you. I realize it's crowded, don't worry. Just allow the body to be straight. Don't hold it rigidly, but allow there to be a straightness of being. So there's an open and clear channel for the energy. An open and clear channel for the breath. And allow all of the senses to pull within. Take your attention, and instead of having it be focused on the sounds of the world around, the sensations of the world around, take that attention, because the mind goes where the attention goes. So take that attention consciously, deliberately, and pull it inward. And allow that attention to grow within you. As the awareness within the self grows. Yeah, there'll still be sounds outside. But when the attention isn't on them, when the awareness isn't on them, they float very gently and harmlessly across the consciousness. So keep drawing that awareness in. Use the mind literally as a muscle that just pulls that attention and focus from the outer world to the inner world. And allow the awareness within to gently and softly blossom. What is it like right now, right here in this breath? What is it like in you right now? Don't judge. Don't analyze. Don't explain. Simply observe it. Just notice it. Right here in this breath. What's it like inside you? And as you inhale, allow the breath to come in fully and gently. And notice as the breath fills the being, are there places within you that the breath doesn't flow? Are there places within you that feel constricted and tight? Again, don't judge, don't analyze, simply notice that there's some places you can feel the breath flowing freely within. As this beautiful wave of divine life that comes in on the breath. And then there's some places it doesn't flow so smoothly. Just notice them. And see whether simply by bringing the awareness and the breath to them, can you loosen the constriction? Can the breath start to flow there too? As you inhale, take in this sacred energy. And allow it to flow and to touch every corner of the being. Draw it there with the awareness and attention. Every part of the body, every part of the mind, the subtle body. Draw the breath through the entire being. Bringing consciousness and awareness to the fullness of yourself. allow the awareness to merge with the breath as it flows in and through the entire being. And as you exhale, as the breath gently flows out of the being, allow yourself to come to a place of stillness in the emptiness at the end of each breath. Rest in that stillness for a moment before the next inhalation. Gently bring the palms of your hands together at chest level in Namaste and rub them gently against each other. Press your palms into your closed eyes. Open your eyes and lower the hands. Welcome to Satsang. We'll begin as always with a question that's come in advance and then open it up to any questions that anyone here may have. Is there one element of sadhana that is most helpful in achieving communion with God? So sadhana, of course, is our spiritual practice. Is there one element of that that's most helpful in attaining that oneness of God? Yeah, surrender. For sure. And the reason is you can do everything else. You can learn everything there is to learn. You can do all of the things that you're supposed to do. But until and unless you let go of the wall that is between you and God, everything else you're doing is just being piled on to that wall. It's being stuck on to that wall. And that's the dilemma. It's like my favorite story of the man who is ready for enlightenment. He thinks he's ready for enlightenment. He deems himself ready for enlightenment. And he goes to visit this guru it's been told, this is the guru, this is the one who's going to give you enlightenment. So of course he has to walk through the rivers and climb the mountain, because it's not a story if they don't walk through rivers and climb mountains. And he gets to the cave at the top of the mountain and bows down at the feet of the guru and tells him, I'm here for enlightenment. And here's what I've done, here's what I've studied, here's what I've learned, here's what I've achieved, and here's my challenges. Here's what I need, here's where I'm stuck. And the guru says, have a cup of tea. And the man says, tea? I didn't come for tea, I came for enlightenment. I don't have time for a cup of tea. But the guru says, have a cup of tea. All right, what's he going to do, right? So the guru goes in the back, he makes tea, he comes back, he brings the teapot and 2 cups, and he puts the cups down. And he starts to pour, and he pours, and as he's pouring, the cup's getting fuller and fuller, and he keeps pouring, and now the cup is overflowing outside, and tea is spilling all over the ground, and the man says, stop, what are you doing? The cup is full, it can't hold anymore. And the guru says, your mind is just like this cup. You're so full of what you think you know, what you think you've done, who you think you are, that there's no room for me to give you anything. And so this is really what it's about in terms of connecting with God. We can attach all of the learning, all of the achievements, all of what we've done, but all we're doing essentially is sticking them up on a bulletin board that still is between me and God. There's this wall between us, and all I'm doing is tacking on that wall learning and knowledge and achievements and good merit and punya and good karma and here and there. But all I'm doing is stacking extra things on this wall that still stands between me and God. And so if there were one sadhana, well, you've got to make that wall crumble. And the only way to do that is surrender. Because that wall, God hasn't put it there. Our highest selves have not put it there. The universe has not put it there. Our egos have put it there. It's actually really quite simple. The egos have put it there. It's the ego that says, this is what I want, this is how I want it, this is when I want it, and if I get it, then I'm happy and all is good, and if I don't get it, then I'm not happy and things are bad. Because you can't be in communion with God and absolutely irate at your neighbor at exactly the same time. They don't go together. You cannot be screaming at your family members, beating your children, yelling at your colleagues, employees, whoever it may be, and in communion with God at the same time. The attachment that I have to how everyone else in the world acts is what's keeping me from being connected to God. That attachment that says, here's how it has to be. Now, this doesn't mean that you become lackadaisical employers. It doesn't mean that you let your employees, steal from you and walk all over you and cheat you and not do their work. It's not that. That you let your children, eat all kinds of chocolate cake before dinner. It's not that. One can very easily enforce systems and rules and discipline and order without losing yourself in the process. It's not the rules or the system or the order or the authority that keeps me from God. It's my attachment, my emotional attachment to how people are being. It's that sense of how dare you? Who Who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? I was in peace and then you came along. You made me in a bad mood. You ruined my peace. You're the reason I'm angry. That's what keeps us from God. Because what that's saying is, I'm only okay when you do what I want. And the you could be a spouse, a child, a parent, an employee, the weather, the stock market, the traffic. Doesn't even have to be a human you. But as long as we've got this sense of here's how it has to be, that wall I have built, that box I have created in which I am okay. If the universe acts like this, I am okay. That box I've created is the box that keeps me separate from God. And so surrender is a surrender to God's will. Now it's important to realize surrender does not mean I become a doormat, because of course the next question is, well, so what about, self-esteem? What about protection of our home, of our company, of our family? What about, my own self-respect? Surrender to God's will does not mean we surrender to someone else's ego. Doesn't mean we surrender to someone else's ignorance. And that's really important. Surrender to God. Surrender to God's will does not mean however you treat me, that's going to be great. Whatever you do, no problem. We have a duty. A duty to ourselves, our lowercase s self, the physical body. A duty to our capital S self, the true highest divine self. To use this life to experience truth. That's what we're here for. That's why we've been given a body. That's why we're here. To experience the truth of who we are, to experience oneness with God. That's, according to Indian spiritual tradition, why we get human birth, why it's the pinnacle of evolution. Because in a human birth, with the capacity we have for consciousness, we don't all use it. You look at nature and you realize a lot of nature is a lot better behaved than humans. A lot more loyal. A lot more predictable. The reason that human birth is the pinnacle of spiritual evolution is because we have this ability to look at our own consciousness and to say, I am not that thought. I'm not that anger. I'm not that lust. I'm not that greed. I'm not that competition. I'm not that jealousy. I'm not all of the ways that I'm feeling myself pulled. I'm not that sadness. I'm not that history. I'm not the abused. I'm not the abuser. I'm not the color of my skin. I'm not my bank account. I'm not my sexual orientation. I'm not any of those things. We have the ability to look at ourselves and to realize that. To realize that's just a product of the physical body, which in and of itself is a temple, which is also why it's our duty to protect it. We say, Sharir ek mandir hai. It literally means the body is a temple. It's a temple because God lives within it. If we say the divine lives in our hearts, well, then it means the physical walls, essentially, of that are a temple. So the body is a temple, so we protect it. We don't get walked all over. We don't become a doormat. But we don't allow, and this is the surrender, we don't allow my emotional state, my grounding, my anchoring, my identity, my sense of worthiness in the world, my sense of who I am in this world to be dictated by how people treat me, by who raises me up, who beats me down, who praises me, who criticizes me, who's richer than I am, who's poorer than I am, who's more successful than I am, who's less successful than I am. I don't let any of that dictate my sense of self. So we surrender to God. And what do we surrender? We surrender attachments of here's how it needs to be. We don't surrender goals, by the way. We don't surrender energy. We don't surrender interest. We don't surrender initiative. That's the stuff that keeps it. That's what God has given us to be on earth as tools of the divine will. Our compassion, our creativity, our initiative, this is what fuels us. We don't surrender that. It's not that we become listless and do nothing. It's that we surrender the attachments, as Lord Krishna says so beautifully in the Bhagavad Gita, to the fruits of our labor. So we are dedicated gardeners. We plant our seeds. We till the soil. We plant them as well as we can. We water them. We shine the sun on them. We love them. But we don't lose ourselves in what fruits come out of them. We understand that's not in my hands. We surrender that. We surrender that to God. And we surrender, most importantly, we surrender our egos, because that wall is the ego. The ego is the one that says me, mine, I. My Guru Pujya Swamiji says the I, whether it's in the beginning of a sentence or the middle of a sentence, it's always capital. So it's the only letter that's always capital, even when it's in the middle of a sentence. And when it's vertical, he says, it serves as a wall between us. I. But that same I, he says so beautifully, if you bend it, becomes a bridge. And so this is when we talk about literally breaking the wall of the ego. It's taking that I and we bend. When we do namaste to each other here in India, it literally means the divine within me bows to the divine within you. Divine within me bows to the divine within you. Why do we do that? Why do we bow at the feet of saints, at the feet of our parents, in temples, at the feet of that which is divine, to remind us to keep bowing, to keep bowing, to keep bowing. So that the ego loosens its grip a little. The ego doesn't want to bow. The ego says, you bow to me. Why should I bow? I didn't do anything. I'm the great one. I'm older, I'm smarter, I'm richer, I'm more handsome, I'm more powerful, I'm better. I'm humbler also, by the way. Right? These are the games of the ego. You should bow to me. But we keep bowing, we keep bowing, we keep bowing. Reminds us. Bend the ego, bend the ego, bend the ego. It's that wall. And it's a wall not just between us and God, but between us and all of the manifestations of God here on earth, our family, our friends, our communities. If you think in your life for a moment about, if I said, think about the single greatest thing keeping you from peace today. It's International Peace Day. If you think about what is it in your life that keeps you from peace, the thing that keeps you when you sit down to eat a meal, that makes your stomach kind of in knots and makes you not always able to digest well, that keeps you up at night, not necessarily every night, but what is that thing? And what you'll realize is, each of us in this room will have a different thing, but they all boil down to one core fundamental truth, which is something in the universe is not going according to how I want it to. I've got a plan, I've got an agenda, and something, someone is not following instructions. Or I'm afraid that they won't. Either it's already happening, or I'm afraid that in the future they will not follow my instructions. People in my life, the stock market, the weather, whatever it may be, my health. I've got an agenda, and someone, something is not doing what I want. Or they're not going to in the future. And what you realize is, wow, how interesting. If I simply could let go of that wanting, that attachment, that sense of how I think it should be, maybe it wouldn't keep me up at night. So whether we're looking for just peace in our relationships or communion with God, that wall, it has to break. I was last week watching a show. I was on an airplane to Spain. I was watching a history show on the fall of the Berlin Wall and how no one thought it was ever going to fall and that there was no possibility, like never in a million years is it going to fall. But it did. And if nations, countries, politicians with all of their own agendas and everything can actually come together and get that wall down, well, surely when it's just between us and our own egos, us and our own agendas, us and our own attachments, surely we can get that down. Because the reward is everything. The reward is that connection with God. Think about being in love. Think about being in the arms of the loved one. Just close your eyes for a moment. Picture being in the arms of the beloved. Doesn't matter if it's a romantic beloved, if it's your mother, your father, your grandmother, a child, the tree you love. Just imagine yourself locked in an embrace with the beloved. Now imagine that between you there were 6 inches of plywood. Okay? Between the two of you, 6 inches of plywood. Does it feel so good? Does it feel so good with 6 inches of plywood between you? Of course not. So whether it's the arms of a physical beloved or the arms of God, when we've got a 6-inch wall between us, you lose the experience. So we get rid of the wall. And slowly, slowly, every day, just allow that wall to crumble brick by brick. You may not necessarily have to break it all at once. If you can, fantastic. Take it out brick by brick every day. Can you let go of one thing every day? Something that you wanted, that you were about to get upset about, and then you decide, let this today be the brick in the wall of my ego that goes. Okay, no problem. Thy will be done. A brick every day, one brick. Slowly, 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 slowly. You'll find the wall crumble. Before taking another question that's come in advance, we'll take any questions that anyone here has.
It's almost a continuation to the topic that we
Okay,
discussed.
great.
It's also my personal dilemma. When we are in spiritual path, I at times, my inner feeling is, we have to go by what God says than what I want. At the same time, who am I to decide? So why can't I just go with the flow? So
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. So he says, on a spiritual path, as we've been talking about, we want to go with what God's will is, but also, of course, we try to align ourselves with that, to enact our plans, to make things happen, to be tools in God's hands. He says, why not just go with the flow? So it's a very subtle balance, but it's a very essential balance, because it's the balance between living a wise life and living a lazy life. Because a lazy person can go with the flow and give it sort of this stamp of spirituality. I'm just going with whatever God's plan is. I sat down on the couch today and a crane hasn't come through my roof and lifted me up. Therefore, I guess I'm supposed to just keep sitting on the couch all day, because clearly if God had wanted me to get off my rear end, he would have sent a crane through my roof to pick me up, right? So it's this very subtle distinction. When we are grounded and anchored and clear in our minds, we actually know the answer to this more than we let on. These questions tend to come up when what I know is the right thing isn't easy. And at times like that, it's a lot easier, especially when we're on a spiritual path, to say, how do you forget it? Why fight? Chalo, let God do something about it. But you remember, for me, and those of you who come to Satsang a lot or watch it online, you'll know, I take my inspiration from two main places: scriptures and nature. Those are the two places that I feel God speaks to us. A, God has given us the scriptures. B, God has created nature. So whenever you're in a bind, either look at what have we been told in our scriptures, or how does nature work. So if you look at the Mahabharata, and we don't have time in here to go obviously into the entire story, but there's one core aspect of this. Before the war of the Mahabharata, before the battle in the midst of which Lord Krishna gives the Bhagavad Gita, there were a lot of attempts to get Duryodhana to behave appropriately, to do the right thing. It wasn't that immediately the Pandavas said, all right, we'll show you. Everything was done to get Duryodhana to behave appropriately, to behave dharmically, to do the right thing. Even Lord Krishna tried. And we come to a point in which he basically says to Arjuna, and then of course the Gita gives it to us in 700 verses, you must fight this battle. And you must fight this battle in order to bring back dharma, to bring back righteousness. Okay? Now, it wasn't easy, it wasn't fun. And you could look at it from this perspective and say, well, going with the flow would have been, we get nothing, you get everything. Adharma, lack of righteousness, continues to rule the land. Dharma gets wiped out. But we sit relatively comfortably, of course, in our land of nothing, but nonetheless, we sit relatively comfortably. At least we don't fight. We go with the flow. But Lord Krishna makes it very clear that is not an option. You don't get to sit this one out. You don't get to say, Hare Krishna, aap to karo, aap to Bhagwan hai. Aap kuch karo. Bhagwan Krishna tells us, you stand up and fight this war. I'm with you. I'm driving your chariot. When you need it, I'm there for you. But you've got to fight this battle. And for me, that's the clearest answer to this question. Because going with the flow would have been simply for the Pandavas to say, all right, I guess God doesn't want us to have anything. I guess God wants that adharma, unrighteousness, darkness should just continue to prevail and grow. Eventually we'll die, and whatever God wants to happen, that'll happen. We're just going to go with the flow. But the entire Gita is a scripture on that's not an option. You don't get to sit this one out. Therefore, in our lives, we must do what we know is right. The dilemma, the very subtle dilemma, is to separate the ego that says, because I think this is what's right, it is right, from the real inner divine voice. And that's the subtleness that only our own spiritual practice and the guru can give us. Because the ego says, I'm always right. This isn't just my opinion. Right? And people say, well, all right, that's your opinion. I have a different opinion. But the ego says, no. This is not just my opinion. I'm right. You're wrong. And then we get into fights. And you achieve nothing. So the subtleness is to know, where is it my ego? Where is it an inner calling? But also the subtleness is to know, where is my duty to convince others versus where is my duty simply to live it? Because living my path does not mean convincing others. So when I know something is right, I live it. Again, may not be easy, may not be fun, people may not agree with me. But if I know deep within me that this is not my ego, this is not my attachment, this is not my ignorance, that this is what I know is right. My duty, my dharma is to live that, not to convince others. So that's a lot of where you get conflict is, I know it's right, I therefore have to convince you. No, you don't. Let everyone connect with their own inner voice. I always say, until and unless God comes down and says to you, here's a notebook, here's a pen, could you do me a favor and, be my secretary for a while because I need you to help me? Until and unless God does that, we can be pretty sure that laws of karma are doing what they need to do, that God is connecting with everyone in the way that God is supposed to be connecting with everyone, that we are not the spiritual police, we're not the moral police, we're not the karmic police. We don't need to be the ones moderating the relationship between people and their karma, people and ethics, people and values, people and God. So we live it.
I completely agree, Sadhviji, but there is a contradiction. Like,
Yes.
Krishna said, you go and fight. Now, we are just letting it go. We are not even making efforts to let the other person know what you feel is right. So we are just letting the things go. I mean,
Okay.
that's the contradiction.
Okay.
Contradiction.
So someone is doing something I think is wrong. Do I have the ability to actually change them? No. Is there therefore any benefit in me creating conflict with them? You've just answered your question. There is no way that Lord Krishna would have said, fight this battle, but by the way, there is absolutely no possibility of winning. A dharma is going to rule anyway. Their duty, their dharma, was to fight the battle to restore dharma. When you know there is no way, then the only battle I am fighting is a battle of my own ego. And this is where you live your truth, you live your karmic package, and you trust others to theirs. Now, that being said, if the other person is doing something that is objectively wrong, I mean, if you're walking down the street and someone is abusing someone, you walk down the street and somebody's beating someone clearly weaker than they are, someone's raping someone, someone's harming someone, absolutely we need to intervene to the extent that we are able. If we are able. If we're not able, we call the police. I mean, we intervene in some way. But I think that someone is living a life that is not virtuous. And they don't care what I say. And I have no ability to change them. Then all I've done is created unnecessary conflict. All it is my own ego saying, I'm going to teach them something. I'm not actually restoring dharma here. I'm creating conflict. And this is where it's important to realize, okay, we go with the flow as far as other people and their dharma is concerned. We are proactive with regard to our dharma. So if you needed to have a one-line answer of how to know when it's something you should be doing, when it's your dharma at stake, stand up, do it, fight that battle. When it's someone else's dharma that you're witnessing, that guy's on the couch, he's not fighting his battle, he's not living according to his dharma, and he doesn't care what I say, and he doesn't care what I think, and he tells me to shut up all the time, and I have no ability to change anything. Be quiet. Pray for him. Love him from afar. And have trust that the same divine that speaks through you is going to speak through him. Okay? Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evenings. A beautiful International Day of Peace. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Just to give you a quick scheduling heads up, since I just came back from being out for the last week, I'll be here for the next 2 nights, possibly 3 nights, but maximum 3 nights, and then I have to go out again for a few days. So just to let you know, we will be having satsang for the next 2-3 nights, but then we won't be having it after that for another few nights, and I'll let you know. Whenever it's the last night before I go, I'll let you know that we won't be having it the following day. But I know in advance that I'm only here for 2-3 days before having to go to Delhi for a few days. So, but I will see you tomorrow night with God's grace.